Broadway, the most famous theatre district in the world. Glitz, glamour, the roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd. Nowhere in New York embodies the history of the Great White Way more than the iconic Palace Theatre. It's hosted greats like Harry Houdini, Liza Minnelli and SpongeBob SquarePants. After more than a century of entertaining audiences in Times Square, it's getting a well-deserved facelift. Millions are being spent restoring the interior, remodelling the elaborate plasterwork, creating new light fittings, and
we're taking a 100-year-old landmark theatre and raising it up 30 feet.
Wait, what?
The theater lift consists of lifting a 1,700-seat theater in its entirety 30 feet from its current elevation.
That's right, more than just the curtain is being raised in this plan to build the biggest and most cutting-edge entertainment venue in Times Square. So if you're wondering how and why an historic theatre is being lifted nearly 10 metres into the air, then grab some popcorn and take your seat. The show is about to begin. Our story starts here. Times Square in 1913, where impresario Martin Beck wanted a grand theatre to show off the greatest acts of the day.
Gives people a feeling of, event to come into a space like that where it's a beautiful place. And the palace was meant to be a kind of palace, right?
The combination of big-name acts and a luxurious interior were an instant hit, and the Palace became one of the most successful theatres in the district, loved by performers and audiences alike.
Sarah Bernhardt made $7,000 a week. That's more money by a factor of about 4, I think, for what the President of the United States made at that time.
But the good times were not to last. By the 1980s, Times Square was seeing major redevelopment, and when plans were announced to build a new hotel on the site of the palace, it looked like it was curtains for the theatre. But it's not over till the fat lady sings, and at the last minute the palace was given City Landmark status, the same designation given to buildings like the Empire State and the Guggenheim Museum. It prevents demolition and sets strict rules on any alterations. Undeterred, in 1987 the plans for the hotel went ahead anyway, but instead of knocking the Palace Theatre down, the hotel was just built around it. Fast forward 30 years, and this time it's the hotel which has outstayed its welcome. The 1980s structure is being demolished to make way for this.
We're going to have a hotel development, a retail development, and an actual Broadway theater all contained within our property.
The 170-metre tower clearly wants to make a statement, but to steal the limelight in the middle of all this, you need to do something pretty special. And that something is this, a show-stopping outdoor platform for musicians and live events hovering 9 metres above 7th Avenue. And in case that doesn't catch your eye, you'll get to see performers on Times Square's largest and most advanced display screen.
Makes our sign unique is we actually designed 2 large 15 by 15 foot door leaves so that when the doors are in the closed position, it will appear as there is no doors. It will just appear as a regular LED sign. When the doors are in the open position, they will open inwards. That will enable bands, concerts, performers that can not only be the audiences actually live in Times Square, but we're going to hopefully be broadcasting out to the larger public via the internet.
Connected to this will be 2 floors of what's promised to be the latest in experiential retail. To make the most of the incredible location, this gallery space will sit at ground floor on one of the busiest street corners in America, exactly where the registered city landmark Palace Theatre has sat for over 100 years. Let's rewind a bit. The landmark designation which saved the palace in the 80s only applied to the inside of the theatre. Everything but the stage and the auditorium was knocked down when the building was absorbed into the hotel. This gave the TSX Broadway developers an idea.
When we bought the property, the Palace Theatre existed at the ground level. We needed to move the theatre out of the way. With that in mind, we said, okay, what if we lifted the theatre box in order to open up and activate the ground floor and the other retail potential of this project?
Right, so that's the why. Now, what about the how? First, the existing tower was partly demolished and a structure was put in place to support the remaining floors. The basement was then made ready for the lift, and the steelwork above the theatre was cleared to give it room to move into. At least the site isn't, right next to one of the busiest and most photographed public squares in the world that never takes a moment's pause. No pressure, guys.
Typical job in Manhattan, you come in, your foundation guy is going to start, he leaves, superstructure comes in, maybe steel, one at a time, everybody goes. This job had 4 alphas on the job at the same time, and they all had to work together. And you have urban foundations the entire time down below all of this, trying to get this accomplished.
One of the most challenging parts of the project was clearing the theatre's basement to allow for the installation of some 34 specially designed lifting posts, while not undermining the 48-storey building that remained overhead.
Come in there, you have to basically take the overburden out, chop a little bit of the rock, but you can't go too deep because you can't undermine the existing foundations, and then put a drill rig in there. After we created the headroom, obviously, step by step, one by one, we went across, we drilled the 40-inch holes, set a 36-inch casing in there, and then we dropped what in essence was the lifting mechanism in the can, this is where all the work is. This was the hardest part of the theater.
The first phase began in January when it was lifted just over 7 centimetres to test the equipment. Tilt meters ensured the theatre stayed level during the lift, and an array of monitors were in place to spot any damage as it rose up through the structure.
And that was the biggest risk around the theater, was making sure that the theater was lifted safely, making sure that there was no damage to the landmark internal fabric of the theater.
The one thing that the lift had is it had extentometers, which were little devices that were wired on each jack. And that went back to like a main hub. So as we were pushing up on the theater, it could monitor that we weren't getting one area was going faster than another, pushing the theater out of plumb.
As well as the heavy-duty equipment, a small army of specialists worked on the lift. 3 different teams of structural engineers were employed to focus on the foundations, the lifting apparatus, and the theatre itself. Once the team was happy with how the equipment had performed, the main phase began on February 14th of 2022. The hydraulic jacks lifted the theatre box in 12cm strokes. After each of these movements, a team of consultants performed a thorough inspection of the structure before any work continued. After 7 painstaking weeks, the lift was finally completed on April 5th.
To see the theater rise was again, yes, it was very difficult, made everybody sort of nervous, but ultimately it was, just an awe-inspiring moment for myself, the team, the consultants.
Now the theatre's been hoisted into position, it's getting a facelift from a team of specialist restoration workers. On opening night, theatregoers will enter through a brand new lobby and be treated to an auditorium that's been restored to its former glory. The theatre may have started life as a palace, but now it's part of something even bigger.
The renovation has commenced. All of those back-of-house support areas, which play second fiddle to the performance areas, are now going to be state-of-the-art, 21st century, and everybody's going to want to play the Palace. They wanted to play it before, but now it's going to be even more enticing.
So will this do justice to the venue that's hosted everyone from Judy Garland to Frank Sinatra, and will lifting the theatre be enough to bring the house down?
Obviously, the new palace design is not an old-style palace, but I think that's going to be okay. It's going to be interesting. I'm kind of excited to see how it all plays out.
But before the theatre reopens for the next generation of stars, there's another group who need to take a bow for raising the roof.
It's a testament to my team, the consulting team, to the construction team, that we're able to do this and do it safely.
The show must go on, and for the Palace Theatre it will do so, thanks to the skill of the modern construction industry. So here's a standing ovation to all those involved. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a ticket to the hottest show in town.
It's the best day. It's the best day.
If you enjoyed this video and you want to get an encore from the definitive video channel for construction and puns, make sure you subscribe to the B1M.